What's wrong with you? This shows that there's a big drug transshipment problem in Taiwan. A lot of drugs are coming from like North Korea and China. They're going through Taiwan to the United States. That's why the DEA has put stuff like that. You shouldn't be happy about this. What's wrong with you? There's some people, they kind of
another diplomatic relationship.
This is not like a breakthrough. This is like an embarrassment. Okay? You know, sometimes people they get excited over every little event, and they say, "Oh,
but actually, that's, you know, sometimes the issue is the problem.
Yeah, seriously. You know what the USDA is saying, like Taiwan's a problem country.
Not every department is a good contact point.
Seriously. But it is a problem. There is a lot of drugs being transit. You sometimes see that with the government. Does the quantities are forbid? I'm not talking somebody one little envelope or something. There's many kilograms of product. That's a serious problem. So we still have 40 seconds. It's at 6:07. Don't be nervous though. Okay, believe it, it'll go by very, very quick. So I should call you Johnny?
Johnny, easier.
Like Johnny. Sure.
This name was my mother's name for later for when I was just like a kindergarten.
Like a movie star or
no, easier to write.
在台北，身为一名客家人，代表着什么样的意义呢？客委会执行了哪些计划或活动来保存台北市的客家文化呢？那在台北又有哪些地方可以亲身体验客家文化呢？在今晚上公民组不抵方的时间中，我们特别邀请总是笑容满满的台北市客家事务委员会主委徐世勋，来带大家一起来认识客家文化。谁当家？谁当家？你当家？谁当家？谁当家？谁当家？我当家？你当家？我当家？到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome to the Residence Messenger program on Taipei Broadcasting Station. I'm your host, Ross Darrell Feingold. Today, we are very fortunate to be joined by the chairman of the Taipei City Hakka Affairs Commission, Chairman Xu, Johnny Xu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Are you going to greet us in Hakka as well?
大家好.
Wow.
Wow,
I'll never be able to learn how to say that. Mandarin was very difficult for me to learn. So, and it's taken over 20 years for me to learn just to speak a little bit of Mandarin. But before we talk about the work of the Taipei City Government Hakka Affairs Commission and the programs that you do, let's try and help our listeners understand a basic question. Just in 2020, in Taipei or Taiwan, who is a Hakka? What makes somebody a Hakka? Is it because they say, I'm a Hakka, they're a Hakka? How does it work? Who gets to be a Hakka in Taiwan in 2020?
Yeah, actually, I think it would be easy to identify first. You identify yourself. I'm Hakka. Then you are Hakka because based on the the Hakka Basic Act in our government, first the blood. If you have the Hakka blood.
But how do you prove the Hakka blood?
If your parents or your grandparents, they are Hakka, then you're Hakka.
But how do you prove that the grandparents were Hakka?
They
told you? They said to you I was Hakka?
Yeah, normally, they would. I think grandparents, most of them, they could speak Hakkanese. And maybe they are from the original Hakka hometown. And so they moved to Taipei. And after one generation, two generations, and then maybe for the young people right now, they cannot speak Hakka, but they know their grandparents, they are Hakka. So normally, if they also identify themselves, they are Hakka, then he or she is Hakka.
How many grandparents? If one out of your 4 grandparents was Hakka, then you could say, I'm a Hakka?
I think based on, normally for traditional concept, if your father's part is Hakka, then normally you say you're Hakka. But right now, I think all the, from grandparents, no matter the grandmother, grandfather, either one.
So 1 out of 4 would be good enough.
Would be.
So how about you? Let's just ask you. How many of your grandparents are Hakka?
My father's part, all Hakka. But my mother is Taiwanese.
Okay, but if you tell people you're Hakka, nobody would say, oh, but your mother's not. They would just look at your father.
Because my mother can speak Hakkanese better than me.
So you said your mother's Taiwanese. So if we go back to that era, we won't say your age, Chairman Johnny, but if we go back, say, 20, 30 years, as the 80s, Taiwan was becoming a very modern society, the economy was taking off. So at that point in time, there already was not pressure from the family to marry Hakka. So for example, did your father's parents pressure him to marry another Hakka? Or they didn't, because obviously he didn't. He married a Taiwanese person, not a Hakka person. So does that kind of, did it exist back then, or is it something from maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago? Give us a little understanding of that.
I think maybe for my parents, they married like 50 years ago. But at that time, I think for father's part, my grandparents, they really want him to marry a Hakka woman. But it's not very high pressure. But for my mother's part, actually, they don't want my mother. They didn't want my mother to marry to a Hakkanese because they think because Hakka people is very diligent, but in other words, maybe some like frugal and
which is a lot nicer than saying cheap. So I'm glad you said frugal.
So at that time, my mother told me before this when at that time everybody stopped her to marry to my father because they think if she married to the like Hakkanese family, which she would like very difficult to survive. I mean, so at that time, but I think love is more than everything. So she's still married to the big Hakka family.
And in some families today, in 2020, where both sides are Hakka, the father's side and the mother's side, does that kind of pressure still exist, or is it really something of the past to pressure children to marry Hakka? If both parents are Hakka?
I think especially in Taipei City, right now, no, nobody cared about it.
Taiwan's really just become a modern society, open-minded.
But so for some of the hometown area, I think they still have little pressure for that, but not like very strong pressure.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. So you said in some of the hometown areas. Where in Taiwan are you talking about where this pressure might still exist? Name the places.
Well, actually, I'm from Hsinchu County, and Hsinchu County has more than 70% of Hakka people. So that's the highest percentage of Hakka people in Taiwan. The county. I'm from Xinpu Zhen. Actually, I know some of my friends there. Their families still push them to marry some the Hakka people. Yeah.
And if someone is still not sure if they have some Hakka background, or they're not sure how much of their background is Hakka, I mean, what would be the best way to investigate someone's family heritage for people who are not really sure of this? If their parents weren't sure, their grandparents had passed away already, how could somebody investigate this if they weren't sure about their own personal background?
Yeah, you point out a very key point for us. Right now, especially in Taipei, it's very difficult for us to find out the real Hakka people. And we try to do some research, investigate some, find out the Hakka group, but actually very difficult.
Is there a DNA? Is there some kind of chromosome that indicates?
I don't think so. I'm wondering because I heard that Hakka maybe has a special DNA, but I don't know. Actually, my background is molecular genetics.
Exactly. That's why I asked you.
But I was, my father told me before that the nail on your feet is a little bit different if you are Hakka, but I'm not sure. I have to figure out.
Okay, I think in English we call that an urban legend. It might not be true.
Might not be true.
Okay, but you briefly mentioned your background as a scientist. How did you become the chairman of the Hakka Affairs Commission?
Oh well, it's a long story, but I think our mayor. I think we both joined. When I was in Taipei City Council, I was a councillor before, and I always invite our mayor to join some of the Hakka activities. I think he think I'm very deeply involved in this area, so that's why he invited me to the Taipei City government.
Would you say that we discussed briefly your father being Hakka and your mother being Taiwanese, and you said she actually speaks Hakka very well. But would you say growing up as a child that you were surrounded by Hakka culture, that relatives around you spoke Hakka? dialect, that you were exposed to the stories of Hakka people or the foods of Hakka people? How would you describe growing up in a Hakka family or a half Hakka family in Taiwan? And what kind of level of exposure did you get to Hakka culture?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was born in Hsinchu County, and that's the highest percentage of Hakka people. And my mother, when she married, before she married to marry my father, she can speak no Hakka at all. But when she married to to this big family, and my grandparents, they cannot speak Mandarin at all. They can only speak Hakka. So at that time, my mother has a very difficult time because she's my father is the eldest son in the family for the traditional.
This sounds like a disaster, right? Different dialect, eldest son. Oh my God.
Yeah, my mother told me that at that time she has to wake up very early and ask my grandparents what they want for the breakfast, and normally because they cannot understand each other. So my mother made a lot of mistakes. The misunderstanding. So she made different food for them. So each time, my grandparents feel like, what's the problem of you at that time? So my mother really had a very difficult time, when she just married to the family. But after 6 months, half years, she can speak like 30% or 40% Hakkanese, and then even get better. So right now she can speak very, very good Hakkanese.
Well, what would you remember as a child, besides the story of your mother and breakfast, about being Hakka growing up at that time? As far as something you did in the home or outside the home, at school or festivals, that is more unique to Hakkas and different from Taiwanese people or people who came from China at the end of the Civil War in the 1940s. In your childhood, what things did you do, or do you remember, that were really unique to Hakka culture?
I think because my area, the place where I live, my area is surrounded by Hakka people, and I always went to my grandfather's home, and so he always took me to the local temple. I did remember that the local temple always be the senior people to gathering place. And they always sing the Hakka folk songs. So my memory, always my grandfather took me to the temple and always listen to the Hakka folk songs, and for the whole afternoon when I was just a small kid. Yeah, so that's the first. And second, I think Hakka has so many traditions, and in 1 year we may have like 3 or 5 to 5 different kinds like a traditional festival. And so you can see everywhere in my town. Yeah.
And today, in 2020, do you describe yourself in English, as a Hakka, as a Taiwanese, as a Chinese? I know it's a political, sensitive question, especially now. If someone you meet someone new from overseas and you're speaking English, do you say I'm a Hakka from Taiwan, or do you say I'm Taiwanese? In English, what would you say?
Normally, if I want to let them know where I'm from, I would say I'm Taiwanese. But if we talk about like language, what you say, I would say I'm Hakka. So based on the topic what we're talking. So, but I would be very proud to say I'm a Hakka.
Which is a good way to transition into the work of the Hakka Affairs Commission of the Taipei City government. I'm going to start with a really difficult question. Why does Taipei City need a Hakka Affairs Commission?
Okay, but Taiwan right now, especially in Taipei, we have like 570,000 people, Hakka people in Taipei City. So it's the third biggest population. The Hakka population in Taiwan. So I think, but in Taipei, especially this modern city, it's very difficult to keep or to preserve the language in this city. So I think we really need to how to keep this language, or how to keep this culture. So we need this commission.
Well, I don't want you to lose your job, of course. But isn't this the work of the central government? Why does the local government need to do this?
I think the central government, they try to find a policy, and who's gonna do this?
Who's gonna execute it?
Yeah, who's gonna execute? I think the local government. So for Taipei, we have to face the more than 1/5 of I mean 1/5 population of Hakka people. So I think we have a lot of work to do.
Okay, then if you have that much work to do, why is your agency a commission and not a department? Why is it a way and not like a
Yeah, because like commission, even we have Hakka Affairs Commission. The commission still be the first level of the same as the department. But the problem, the difference is we have fewer people, staff in this commission.
Well, maybe you need a bigger budget. How many people do you have working there now?
30.
Oh, so small.
Yeah, small. But we also have one foundation, that Taipei Hakka Culture Foundation. And we have another 30 people, so
Okay.
total 60.
Yeah. And what are some of the key activities, whether for the foundation or for the commission? Give us an overview of the things you do. Tell us a bit about the things you do day to day,
Okay.
and then also tell us a bit about some of the bigger kind of cultural events over the course of the year. But what do you do day to day?
Okay. I think the main thing for our commission is to keep the language and keep the culture. So how to do that? So first, for the language part, we try to all this from the kindergarten to even the college. We try to find some program for the schools, and we have developed some of the program, like education program for them to teach the languages.
Do you certify the teachers?
Yeah, we do. We certify. The central government has certified the Hakka teacher. That's the first. So we have to persuade all the schools. Not right now. It's only like 15 or 20% schools they teach Hakka.
So mother, in English we call it mother tongue. So the mother tongue Hakka dialect is not available in every public elementary school?
Depends on the school if they want to do that or not. So the main job for us to persuade them.
But isn't it ultimately up to what the parents want?
Yeah, right now, I think the parents, they would prefer that their kids can speak English rather than can speak Hakkanese.
I thought you were going to say they want to do more math and science, and maybe they don't want to do...
Yes, but right now, I always try to persuade them. Do you know how many people can speak Hakkanese in the world?
10 million?
No, 60 million.
60 million.
Yeah. So it means that if you can speak Hakkanese, you can communicate with 60 million people around the world. Mm-hmm. So it's of course it cannot compete with the English, but it's a mother language, so it's very close. So if you can speak Hakkanese, you can get very close to people who can speak Hakka.
So how do you persuade a school to offer a Hakka language class to young children? So if it's an elementary school, you make a speech to the parents, you make a speech to the principal. How do you persuade them to offer?
Yeah, we always have the gathering for the principals, and we try to talk to them and tell them the advantage for learning Hakka. For example, like if you can speak Hakka, because Hakka pronunciation is very difficult for tongue. So sometimes the or sometimes for the very different pronunciation. If you can speak this Hakkanese, then they can stimulate your brain very well.
Do you have any scientific proof for this?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Next time I offer to you.
Is it on your website of the Hakka Affairs Commission?
Not yet. We showed it.
Yeah. Okay. So what else besides language in the elementary school? Also in the middle schools and the high schools, language class.
And also we have we hold some different activities for the certain traditional festival to show them that this is a Hakka tradition. So that's another part. And also we have a park, Hakka Taipei City Hakka Cultural Park,
which is located where? Give us the address.
Dingzhou街, Dingzhou路 on the cross the Shidalu.
Yeah, so right near the Taidian Dalo.
Yeah, near station.
Our MRT station.
That's right.
And what goes on at the Hakka Park?
Actually, the Hakka Park is very. They can. We show them the traditional Hakka hometown. Like we have Chashan Shuitian, means the mountain for the to grow the tea we have the farm for the rice, and so we did organize the whole year, like 24节气 means 24 different for the farm calendar and the lunar calendar, the 插秧 and a lot of like farm work. So if they come to our park, they're gonna see. Also, they can join to do the. For example, we just finished the February 28th. We have the 插秧, activities. So if you come to our park, you're gonna see the whole Hakka tradition, like farm jobs.
And what are some of the bigger events over the course of the year? For example, is there something Hakka culture related that's special for Lunar New Year or Mid-Autumn Festival or Dragon Boat? Does the commission do activities on those holidays that are the Hakka way of celebrating those holidays?
I think for Dragon Boat or the Mid-Autumn Festival, I think that's similar as like other Taiwanese people did. But we have different, is the national Hakka National Day.
What's that?
That's we also call Sky Mending Day, 天穿日. That's a very Hakka tradition. Means that it's on the lunar calendar, the January 20th. That day, all the Hakka people they stop to work until that day. Means that they start from they stop work from I think the Chinese New Year's Eve until the 20th of January in lunar calendar. And this day we always want people to really relax, really do nothing, and they always sing Hakka folk songs at that day. Means that take care of your health, take care of the farm, and to show people we try to save the energy and we try to keep people health. That's a very important day for us.
So you would have what kind of event on that day organized by your commission?
We always organize this kind of activity in Da'an Shenling Dongyuan or in our cultural Hakka Park, and we show them the songs, the Hakka folk songs, and so we invite a lot of people who can sing the Hakka folk songs, different groups, and so we have a lot of shows. So people can just come here and sit there, they can enjoy, and we also offer the Hakka traditional food like the rice dumpling and some rice cake, etc. or 仙草. We show them and let them feel like it's really like really relaxed day, the whole day.
So all the activities of the commission are open to people who are not Hakka. You don't have to prove you're a Hakka to participate, correct?
Yeah, they can. Everybody can join.
Even foreigners, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
What about media outreach? Does the Taipei City Government Hakka Affairs Commission do media like the way the Central Government Hakka Affairs Commission does? Or do you have a TV station, a radio station? Do you have programs on online, on a website, on YouTube? What kind of media stuff do you do?
We have three programs in two different radio stations. One is here.
On Taipei Broadcasting Station.
That's right. One's here, and two is in Formosa radio station. Yeah.
And what are these programs about? Are they just you mentioned earlier folk songs were an important part of Hakka. What do they do on these shows? Or is it just teaching the dialect? What happens on these programs?
I think mostly they try to convey some like news in Hakka and teach them how to speak Hakkanese, and also we try to find some like young people, people they interest things to teach them and invite them to learn some Hakkanese.
Yeah, when are those programs on? How many hours a week? How often do you do this Hakka radio program?
I think for the weekday we have 1 hour every day from Monday to Friday, and on the weekend we have 40 minutes.
So 1 hour a day. It's a relatively large amount. So people who do want to hear Hakka news, they do have an opportunity to hear that. And we're going to go into a break, but after the break, we'll talk a little bit more about why it's important that the Taipei City Government Hakka Affairs Commission provide these kinds of services to the Hakka population of Taipei. You're listening to Residents Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station.
Okay. Not that nervous.
Good. Told you, no need to be nervous.
太大声了。
不是，我现在测试一下，好像你们现在休息的时候还听得到。
哦。
对，我觉得有点奇怪。
Hour a day, that's a lot of programming.
This song is right now, you know, we can hear everywhere. Hakka songs. So you back forth from Taiwan to New York all the time? No?
Yeah, I've been living in Asia on and off mostly since 1996.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I lived in Hong Kong and Singapore and Taipei, but most of the time in Taipei.
You're lucky now because you know Hong Kong and Singapore. Right now they're very severe.
You can't travel. You go to Hong Kong, you come back to Taiwan, you'll be quarantined.
Yeah, so I don't know why.
In fact, when you said that there's 60 million Hakka speakers, I wanted to say like, yeah, but you can't visit 50 million of them right now. I thought maybe that would be very nice to say, so I didn't say.
You know, actually, in the United States, there's a lot of like immigrants. I think they are, you know, the Hakkanese people. So I still remember when I was in Buffalo, you know, we have a Chinese supermarket. For most of the grad students, if you just arrive,
all you do is you hang out with each other and you go to the Asian supermarket.
Yeah, they always bring you there. So the first time I went there, I heard some people they are talking this like around 50 or 60 years old age. I mean the people they are speaking Hakkanese. I was so surprised, and I went there to speak Hakkanese with them. And then they are very surprised. And then one of the guy took me. He said, if you just arrived, you should buy some of the ingredients, flavors. I'll show you. So he took me go around the supermarket and put. You know, he said, this is very difficult to buy. You know, if you miss this time, you're going to find out more than a couple months. So he helped me to put a less. But I don't want to buy that much. I said, no, it's enough. He said, no, you have to buy. So when after, he gave the whole bucket items. I went to the cashier. And the guy went to the cashier. He became he's the one to
He paid.
No. He's the one on the cashier.
Okay.
And then I figured out he's the owner of the supermarket. But he gave me 50% off.
Oh, the Hakka discount.
So I remember that $124. He just he just say $50.
Was he a recent immigrant or second, third generation?
The first generation. Yeah, so he said that next time if you come here, you just let me know. You just help even if I'm not here, you can tell to the
对，可是还是一直收得到音。可是我们 console
they will know. They will give you a discount. So after that, all my friends they want to learn.
Was he from China or?
对，是欧美的，对。
Yeah. And she stayed
有啊
there
那个
40
玉
years.
璇姐姐说昨天是这样的，
So
都没有人讲。
that's I'm very impressive for it. And meet the Hakka people in abroad.
Isn't there these different kinds of world Hakka conference events every year in different places?
Yes, there's some association, not by the government part. So there's I think the World Hakka association, I think, and they did organize 1 year in Taiwan and 1 year outside Taiwan, around the world. So I know that this kind of association, but we join sometimes, but not every year. Yeah. Because that's more, I think mainly for the the religion. That's for the government.
Well, I think a lot of those things are controlled by China anyway, so you gotta be careful.
That's right. So that's why we still taking very carefully. Like, some of the association if we want to join the activity, we're gonna figure out.
接到亲友用陌生号码来电之前，应透过其他联络方式再次确认，以免遭到诈骗。以上为刑事警察局广告。哇，好帅哦！
帅又怎样？看他一路闯红灯抢快，太危险了。
哎呀，前方出车祸了！是刚刚的机车骑士骑太快，又没开大灯。
看吧，比起耍帅啊，维护你我的安全才是真爱的表现。不闯红灯，不超速，行车开灯，安全更。
以上广告由交通部道安委员会及台北市政府交通局提供。
Welcome back to the Residence Messenger program on Taipei Broadcasting Station. I'm joined today by Johnny Xu, the chairman of the Taipei City Government Hakka Affairs Commission. Chairman Johnny, you mentioned earlier about 500,000 Hakka people in Taipei City. You were talking about some of the programs that the commission does, but do Hakka people in Taipei, do they really have different concerns than people who are not Hakka? I mean, when they talk to politicians, do they have different concerns? Do they have different hopes for the future? What makes Hakka people different that they need to have a whole commission? Is there something other than the language that is on their minds?
I think when those and we cannot say immigrants, they are from the hometown to Taipei City. Long time ago, I think because they did have a hard time. Because I heard from some of the senior people, they told me when they just arrived to Taipei, they really have hard time just being a little bit discriminated, and so they cannot speak like Hakkanese very in front of everyone. So at that time, you're gonna see so many Hakka people. They're gonna have the small groups, live very close, and at that time. But right now, it's the city different. But they still have some, the shadow in the mind. So what we have to do, we have to, let them feel like very released and let them that right now Taipei City is a very friendly area that you can speak any kind of your mother language. So that's we try to do that.
So when you were a child growing up, did you get in trouble at school if you spoke in Hakka?
For me, no, but I met my classmates when I was in senior high school because I came to Taipei when I was in senior high school. And the guy just sit in front of me, and he's from another Hakka hometown. But the whole class, we have 3 Hakka people I know. And I was trying to talk to him in Hakkanese, but he pretended he understand, he doesn't understand.
Was he afraid of getting in trouble with the teacher?
But at no, I don't know. So at that time I was confused. Why? I think you're from the Hakka hometown. You should speak Hakkanese. But one day, it's when he always pretend he understand no Hakkanese. But one day, I saw him use the public phone to call back to his home. He speaks very fluent Hakkanese, and I was so angry. So I run to his front, and I shout to him, why you speak? You pretend you cannot speak Hakkanese. He told me the same thing. He worried that people may not look him down, or that's in his mind, because their parents told him, if you come to Taipei, you should be careful. But right now I think it's no problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we always see politicians around election time. They go to meet Hakka groups and they try to speak Hakka. So especially me as a foreign resident of Taipei, I'm always trying to figure out, like, what are the concerns of the Hakka people that are so different that the politicians are coming to say, don't worry, we'll take care of you.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think because those Hakka senior people, when they came to Taipei, they really have a hard time. So it's just recall them that we should be united.
Is that why on the I'm going to ask you another tough question. Is that why on the MRT, the announcements are in Mandarin, Taiwanese, Hoklo, and Hakka? Is there really anyone in Taipei, older people, including older people, in 2020 who doesn't understand Mandarin or Taiwanese, who only understand Hakka?
Very few. Right now, very few. But I think our government just want to emphasize the equal, fair to the old kind of mother language.
It's not about getting votes, right?
No.
But what about younger people? You mentioned trying to go to the schools, to elementary schools, but those are children, and it's really going to be up to their parents whether or not the parents will ask the elementary school to provide Hakka dialect teaching or other exposure to culture. What about people who are a little bit older, people in university age, people in their 20s? What is their interest? So if they have a Hakka background, how would you describe the interest of people in that generation? The Nianqingren, right? The people in their 20s, the 30s maybe, they grew up in the internet era, right? Grew up watching a lot of English language television or foreign movies or Japanese or Korean culture. So for that age group, what's their interest in Hakka?
Actually, we noticed that, I tell you data, that we do some investigate percentage. Right now in Taipei City, I think for the age from below 40 years old, right now the Hakka blood people under 40 years old, only less than 10% can speak Hakka. So that's the problem for us. I mean Taipei, because they don't have very strong the ethnic concept. Second, I think they don't think Hakka language is that important. But for their parents, for the more above 50, 60 years old, they want to push their son or their grandson to speak Hakka. But they right now everybody has the self right, so they don't care. That's the problem for us to how to make the culture or the language heritage. That's our problem we have to solve.
And how are you going to solve it?
Yeah, so as you say, we try to find some the activities or some of the the music or dance that maybe young people would interest.
But a young person in their early 20s, I don't know if they'll be interested in traditional dance, or they might also be busy with school or starting their working career. They might not have time to go to a language class. Maybe they'll listen to something that's on the internet that they could listen to through their phone while traveling to work, for example. This does sound like a really difficult challenge unless the young person has the motivation.
Yeah, that's a key problem for us. So we try to find out. We notice most young people, they want to show themselves their talent, or they want to be their YouTuber. So we are trying to organize some of the environment for them to if you learn some Hakkaness, the Hakka language. And we create some the studio for them. They can be the broadcaster, or they can be a singer, and to teach them how to make the lyrics, how to make the songs, and they can show themselves.
Is this traditional music, or is this kind of modern rock music?
Pop music. Pop music
in Hakka.
Yeah.
And where can people find out more information about these kinds of opportunities?
actually, in our commission, the website, every year we release a new album for the pop music and one for the children. So two different albums.
Are you optimistic that Hakka culture and Hakka dialect can be saved? Or maybe that's not the right word. Are you optimistic that Hakka dialect and Hakka culture will continue to exist in Taipei City 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 25 years from now?
I think if we try to make this language become more international, it's possible. Because right now we are trying to, in Taipei, because it's a very international environment, so we always invite some of the, the very international famous, like no matter singer, musicians, to come to Taipei, and they play Hakka music, and combine maybe with the jazz, or maybe with some other different like Latin music, combine, and we have different, transform our Hakka music. And right now, it's getting more and more popular.
So would you say that Taipei is the home to Hakka tourism around the region, around Asia? Instead of going to China or other places, people should come to Taipei to find Hakka culture?
I think so. Actually, Taipei is more international. I mean, if you want to find like in Hakka for face to the international people, Taipei would be the best place to compare with China.
What about outside of China? Where else around Southeast Asia? There's in English we call it the diaspora, right?
Mm-hmm.
People of similar ethnicity. They've left their home region and they've gone overseas. Where else in Southeast Asia is there a lot of population of Hakka people?
Yeah.
And how does that compare to what you're doing in Taipei as far as maintaining the culture?
I think in maybe in Malaysia or in like Singapore, and I know even Indonesia, there we have a lot of Hakkanese people there. But I think they do have some regular gathering and some activities. But I think for Taipei, I think it depends on the government. The government, if they want to devote for this language, it's more possible to keep that language. So our government, I think the Taipei City government, they put a lot of like resources for us to do this.
I think also one thing that makes Taiwan different than some of those other places is Mandarin and Chinese characters are still the everyday language here, whereas in Malaysia, Singapore, even in Indonesia, it's increasingly English as well, especially for educated people. A lot of people go overseas for education, whereas here I think we still have an advantage that we are using Chinese characters, we're using Mandarin, so people speak Mandarin. They can build off of that to learn the dialect. Not me, because I will never be able to learn Hakka or Taiwanese. There's too many tones, it's too complex to me. But you mentioned food earlier. Is Taipei also a place to find authentic Hakka food?
Yeah, indeed. Today I also bring the small booklet that
published by the commission.
Yeah, by our commission, and that we introduced like 15 very authentic and very good quality Hakka food in Taipei. So
are these restaurants, or is it more like street food that you would find in a night market?
Not in my night market, but most of them are the restaurants, and it's very old restaurants for more than 40 years, and some of them they are like more modern, but they have very authentic Hakkanese food. Yeah.
So the commission has this wonderful brochure. Is it free?
Yeah, it's free.
Okay, so anyone can go to the commission office, or the Hakka Park. And
no, our office is in 信义路3段
Okay.
157巷.
Okay. Beautiful photos of Hakka food and the listing of the restaurants. What makes Hakka food different than other types of regional cuisine from China? What's unique about Hakka food?
I think we use a lot of like vinegar, ginger, and some more marinated. So I think that's the feature for Hakkanese food. But for old people, they would say that Hakkanese food, the feature for Hakkanese people would be oil, very salty, and a very good smell. But actually, right now, I think most of our Hakkanese cuisine, we reduce the oil and we reduce the salt. But the smell is still very, very good.
And how is that different than Taiwanese cuisine, for example?
I think we use a lot of like ginger and vinegar that compare with Taiwanese food. It's a little bit different.
And is Hakka cuisine more focused on using seafood or pork or chicken, or it uses all of them equally?
We use very few seafood. So mostly it would be pork, chicken, and even a little bit beef.
Okay, so very hearty. You feel very full after eating this. A lot of politicians, we talked about this briefly, that when they meet Hakka people, they'll say, I'm part Hakka, or suddenly they become Hakka. So could you just give us the truth, whether politicians or movie stars or singers, who are some famous Hakka people in Taiwan? Authentic Hakka people.
You know the girls group, the SHE.
Yeah.
The Hebe.
Mm-hmm.
Hebe, she is the real Hakka.
Does she do Hakka rock music as well?
No, actually, but she can speak very good Hakkanese. And why I know, because she's my neighbors.
Okay.
She lives just really nearby my home.
So you greet her in Hakka, I hope,
Yeah.
when you see her. Who else is a real authentic Hakka? Not somebody who's just a Hakka when they make a speech to Hakka and say, I'm Hakka today. No. Who's a real Hakka in Taiwan? Some famous people, politicians.
What? Politician? I think, well, today I bring a booklet. Okay. They say that who's who in the Hakka world.
Who's who in the Hakka world? So there is a book. This is the guide. If you want to know who really is a Hakka in Taiwan, there's actually a book about it.
Inside they show our president.
Our president's side. Okay. Is she a Hakka or not, Johnny?
Well, she says she is.
No, that's not what I asked. Is she a Hakka or not by your standards?
I think she told us like her families. I think that she's the Hakka, and also the president our president Li Denghui. He said he's Hakka.
He said he's a Hakka, but is he really a Hakka?
I cannot identify right now because it's I cannot identify from his parents right now, so I cannot say. But in this book, he is inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other current politicians or other famous people who are Hakka?
I think our minister of the administrative yuan, Mao Zhiguo.
Former premier.
Yeah, premier. He's a Hakka also.
And what about in the business world? Any famous Hakkas?
Well, business, I'm not sure, but I know there's a lot Hakkanese there. I think maybe I can find out later next time.
Okay,
I'll figure out.
No problem. And before we go, what's the website of the commission? Just give out your website one more time.
You mean the
Hakka Affairs Commission website?
Well, hac.gov.taipei.
Okay, very easy to remember. hac.gov.taipei. Okay, and before we go, why don't you just wish our listeners a goodbye and have a good weekend, or some other farewell greeting that you would normally give on a Friday night before the weekend in Hakka.
I use in Hakka, right?
Yes.
希望大家希望大家有一隻動好嘅禮拜。
Well, thank you so much, Chairman Johnny Hsu, for coming on the show. This is Ross Feingold. You've been listening to the Residence Messenger program on the Taipei Broadcasting Station. Have a good weekend.
Really? Finished?
It's finished.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was great.
I know there's a lot of businessmen, but I don't know